let's talk about the first home savings account. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, or perhaps are not familiar with some of the intricacies of this great, awesome savings option for anybody who's looking to buy a home, who has never either owned a home or has not owned a home in the last 4 years. This is an absolutely great tool for you. And I'll just like to share with you guys a little bit more information about it so that you're aware. And if it's not applicable to yourself because perhaps you do own a home, please share this video and information with your loved ones, coworkers, your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, whoever it may happen to be. So the first home savings account is really a combination of the RSP and the TFSA. So everybody, for the most part, just a little reminder here, the RSP is all about upfront savings. So if you put $10,000 into your RSP, you will immediately get a tax write-off and get the tax portion back when you do your tax return. So if you're a 30% tax bracket, that's a $3,000 return on the RSP, which is great. So in the same manner, if you had $10,000 in the FHSA account room available to you, you could get a $3,000 refund once you do your tax return. But here's an added bonus. Let's say you're like, well, Dan, I'm not in a position right now to buy, I need a certain amount of money down. Well, put the money in there now, because the cool part is that money, as long as it's invested, will grow tax-free. So now we got a TFSA, which is what we call the back end, opportunity for savings here. So unlike an RSP, which is upfront, the TFSA on the flip side, you get the tax savings as the investments grow. So unlike an RSP, where if you withdraw it, you got to pay the taxes on it, TFSA, any growth in the value of those assets are tax-free. The same thing applies to FHSA. So now you get the upfront tax savings because you get the write-off against your income, and any growth in those investments are all tax-free, all of which can then be utilized to buy a home. Now, of course, there are some rules and regulations on this, and the big one here I want to draw you to on the Government of Canada website is the $8,000 limit that you're given. Now, the big catch is, and this is why I'm bringing this up, you'll notice right here on their website, December 31st, 2023 deadline. Each and every year, as of right now, of course, these rules do change over time, you will get an $8,000 room. But unlike a TFSA, where you automatically get that additional room allotted to you as you get older, you don't get it unless you open an FHSA account. So please, before we get to the end of the year, make sure you open that account. As long as you open that account before the end of the year, you'll automatically get that $8,000 room. And the best part is, once you go into January 2025, you will get another $8,000, which is absolutely great. For some of my clients who are looking at buying soon, this is a great opportunity to say, listen, let's open that account now. Let's get that $8,000 write-off right away. Let's do a closing per se in, let's say, February 2025, and let's take another $8,000 and let's apply that back into FHSA at the very start of the year. Hence, you now have $16,000 that you can apply towards buying your first home. Okay, now a couple other things to mention here, because I know some people are saying, well, Dan, I was back there looking at the home buyers plan, and the RSP home buyers plan is a great plan, but and you can still use that plan, but again, the FHSA, in my opinion, is a much better way to go. And for those who have money in the RSPs, great news. And here's another site through the Canadian government website there about the FHSA. You can actually transfer your money from the RSP over to the FHSA as long as you have that account open. And of course, you have the appropriate or applicable amount of money in there for your room or your space. Now, let's say you've got $20,000 or $30,000 in RSPs, you can, in essence, transfer, let's say, $10,000 if you have a total of $10,000 in there, and then use the home buyers plan for, let's say, $20,000, and use the FHSA for the other $10,000. Hence, taking advantage of both programs. We'll talk about the home buyers plan another time, but by all means, if you have any questions regarding the RSP home buyers plan, reach out to me. I'd love to explain to you the pros and cons and the merits of using that program, because there are stipulations and regulations for all of these accounts. And by all means, check out these links. It's all provided for you. But it doesn't hurt to reach out to me or another professional like myself, just to make sure you have a proper understanding of how these accounts work. Now, I got a good buddy of mine, Greg Gingerich, over at BMO. If you need a financial advisor, I highly recommend Greg. Great gentleman there. But BMO has put together a little side-by-side breakdown on a PDF. And again, if you'd be interested in getting this, just shoot me an email or text or something like that, and I will send you this link to this breakdown of a bunch of questions people have, really comparing the TFSA, FHSA, and the RSP and the pros and cons for each one. So I'm going to be putting my emphasis here. I'm going to kind of just highlight a couple of the key elements I think you should be aware of, or perhaps your kids or grandkids or coworkers or nieces or nephews should be aware. And again, my recommendation is, even when your kids are going off to university and they have no desire to buy a home anytime soon because they're focusing on their education, their job, get them to open that account. Once that account's open, they automatically get the 8,000. Then if they win the lottery or just something great happens in life, or you win the lottery and you decide to give it to your kid, boom, they now have full access to that, and we can forego paying the taxes on $8,000 per year. Okay, so looking at this thing here, we do have up to 15 years to use the plan, or at the age of 71, so that's something to keep in mind there. The 8,000 has a maximum of 40,000. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, let's say, this given year, you don't have any money. Like, Dan, I'm just not in a position, but next year I'm looking to get a bonus. I'm going to get a raise, blah, blah, blah. If you open the 8,000 this year, next year you're going to get another 8,000, you'll have combined 16,000. You can do a lump sum of that total 16,000. Now, the kicker is, unfortunately, you don't get the third year and the fourth year. So the maximum, my understanding, is that you can carry over 1 year to the next is $8,000 of room. So you do kind of want to take advantage of that, but by all means, open that up as soon as you can to do so. Okay, apparently you can carry forward the tax deductions. So that's something perhaps to keep in mind. Perhaps you want to write off another year because the next year is going to be a higher income year and you're going to be in a higher tax bracket. Something to think about. Okay, I already talked about the carry forward of the 8,000. If you go over those limits, this is something you definitely want to be aware of. There is a penalty, so you don't want to go over, as it could be 1% per month, which is very, very hefty. So please kind of know what you're doing, pay attention, and speak to a professional to ensure that you have a proper understanding. Never hurts to get a second opinion to make sure you're properly grasping the rules of the FHSA. It is a relatively new program, and I do get that there's also often, people misconstruing the information, perhaps just not knowing what they're talking about. Okay, you must buy a home within a year. So that is, of course, the big catch. The FHSA is to help you buy a home, and you must do so within a year. Now, that money can be utilized, my understanding is, for anything really pertaining to the house. You need to buy appliances, you need to pay the legal fees, anything at all, as long as you can prove that you bought a personal residence. This is not for a rental property. This is for a personal residence, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, now actually, I'm going to reflect back on the document we looked at a second here ago. There is a few Q&As that they have down, and I like this one. It kind of talks about this idea that, can I move the money over to an RSP, whatever else? But they're saying there's a right way and a wrong way to move that money. Okay, so don't be too hasty to thinking that you know what you're talking about, because that's when mistakes happen and it could cost you quite a bit. So the example they're given here is that you can fill out a form. In this case, they're referring to as the RC 720, whereby you're going to be moving $5,000 in this example from an RSP to an FHSA. If you don't do that, unfortunately, look at the next example, and let's say you take $6,000 out of the RSP and then you put it back in the FHSA, you will, in theory, get added to your income, in this example, $6,000. And on the flip side, you'll write off the $6,000, hence really not getting any new write-off at all. And they're really, the big kicker here is you've now used up $6,000 of your RSP room space, which from my understanding is not the case if you do a proper transfer. So anyways, lots of different questions. I'm not going to go through all this stuff here. I will provide the links down below. Please make sure you like, share this, or whatever else means you can to get this out to other people. Being that we are right near the end of 2023, this is definitely the time to get out and open those accounts. Like I said, even if you don't have the money this year, if you open the account anytime next year, you can take a full advantage of the entire 8,000 from this year, and the next year the following 8,000, and so forth and so on. So you can just keep on carrying that over. So say next year you only get $8,000, then use this year's 8,000 and carry forward next year's 8,000 to the year 2026. Okay, this is going to be a game changer for those of you looking to buy a home. I hope this has been helpful. And yeah, you need any advice, you want to run anything by me, it's my pleasure to assist you or your family members or anybody you may know. Thanks again for checking in, and thanks again for sharing this with others through various social media avenues.